If you've recently gone through an experience where you've been betrayed in your life and you are suffering with complex emotions, including grief, because of that scenario, then today's show is dedicated to you. We are going to discuss mindset and what you can do to support yourself as you navigate through the stages of grief and betrayal. Welcome to C60 Health Connections, where we meet with leading experts in the health and wellness space. Dr. Debi Silber is with us today for our second conversation in our 4-part series on grief. She is the founder of the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute and is a holistic psychologist and health, mindset, and personal development expert. She is the author of multiple books, including Trust Again, and is a 2-time #1 international best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman and From Hardened to Healed, The Effortless Path to Release Resistance, Get Unstuck, and Create a Life That You Love. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is internationally ranked in the top 2% of podcasts worldwide. Her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries on how long it actually takes to heal. In addition to being on Fox, CBS, the Dr. Oz show, and TEDx 2 times, she's an award-winning speaker and coach dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals, as well as any blocks preventing them from health, work, relationships, confidence, and the happiness they want most. My name is Jessica McNaughton, and I'm the CEO at shopc60.com and C60 Purple Power. I'm a business executive with years of experience in corporate America, and for more than 20 years, I've been exploring various modalities in health, wellness, and spirituality. Now, before we get started, any statements or products or remedies discussed today have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Any products or topics discussed are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent, or mitigate any disease. So, Debbie, so great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this important conversation.
Thanks. Looking forward to our conversation.
So, for everybody, the last 2 years have been really challenging, 2 years plus. And we're here today because, collectively, people are really struggling with a lot of grief. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Likely something really powerfully challenging and transformational has happened to you in your life over the last 2 years. And, people are feeling grief from a lot of different areas. It might be from an employer, they're feeling betrayal from a lot of different areas. It might be from an employer, it might be from friends, it might be from the government, it might be from family or a love partner. So I really want to just dive in today and learn from you because I know you've done so much work in this area, and you did a study in your PhD program on the different stages of betrayal that occur and kind of like what transpires out of that. So maybe we'll just start with a little bit of your background and how your life's experiences brought you to become an expert in this space.
Absolutely. And, first of all, no one studies betrayal because you want to. You study it because you have to. And it's actually my 30th year in business, and I was in health and then mindset and personal development. I had a really painful betrayal from my family. So I thought I did the work to heal. And a few years later, it happened again. And this time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through it, you're shocked, you're blindsided, you're devastated. Life as you've known it is no longer. So that was the case with me, got him out of the house and looked at the 2 experiences and thought, what's similar to these 2? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized, boundaries were always getting crossed. I never really took my needs seriously. And I'm a big believer in that whole thing, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I made this decision that I'm going back for this PhD. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to manage the time, but it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential. I mean, imagine here it was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I'm like, now I don't know how I'm going to do this thing, but I felt so compelled to do it. So I was going through the program, and then it was time to do the study. So naturally, I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my work, my family, my life. And I'm happy to share the discoveries. But I also, just getting back to what you originally said, I define betrayal as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And we all have them, right? And when we look at our times, this is really, it could be a betrayal of expectations. No one signed up for this. And what's happening is how people are reacting and responding can be so different than what we expect, what we planned for, what we hoped for. So there's so much betrayal that people are feeling. But betrayal is a very different type of trauma, type of life crisis. And that was actually the first discovery. I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, post-traumatic growth is if you can imagine an upside of trauma, how that crisis, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, whatever it is, leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective you didn't have, right? But I had been through death of a loved one, and I'd actually been through disease. And I was like, no, betrayal feels different for me. But I didn't want to assume so that it was the same for everybody else. So I asked my study participants, and I said, if you've been through other crises besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. Here's why. Because it feels so intentional. We take it so personally. So the whole self is shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. They're all shattered, and they all have to be rebuilt. So it didn't quite qualify as post-traumatic growth. It was like, yeah, you need to rebuild your life, but you also need to rebuild the self. So I coined a new term, Post Betrayal Transformation, PBT. That's why it's the PBT Institute. And that's the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. Think about it. If you lose someone you love, right? You grieve, you mourn, you're sad, life will never be the same, but you don't question your sanity. You don't question yourself. You don't, like your ability to trust other people doesn't get compromised, right? So it's a very different experience. That was the first discovery.
Okay. What else did you learn during that study?
Yeah. So the second discovery was that there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had easily 60,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. A few things about that. What's really interesting is we've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 40 years ago and I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust again. My betrayal happened 10 years ago, feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we cannot count on time to heal it. And I can spot an unhealed betrayal a mile away. Happy to talk about that too. But the other thing about the quiz is, actually, every few months I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people land. Would that be helpful if I shared some?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay. So now imagine we have men, women, every age, just about every country is represented. So figure out of 60,000 people, ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant, and that's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. And those triggers can take you right down. Here are the most common physical symptoms. Ready? 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. You wake up, you're exhausted. That's how you know your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. In the beginning, maybe they can't hold food down. Later on, they're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that can be anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So now imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you still have to work, you still have to raise your kids. That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And it's really common to bounce back and forth between those two emotions, which is exhausting. 82% feel hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. So just a few more. This is why I wrote the book Trust Again. Ready? 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Wow, this sounds like an epidemic, really. I mean, it's something that we're not talking about. And I'm blown away by the list of the symptoms.
I'm going to kick it up a notch. Do you know what's even crazier about those numbers? These statistics aren't necessarily from a recent betrayal. It could be from a betrayal that happened decades ago.
Wow.
So now imagine you're walking around with these gut issues and this inability to trust and sleep issues and anxiety from something that happened decades ago.
Wow.
That's what happens when it's not healed.
So what was your third insight from your study?
Yeah, the third, this for me was the most exciting out of the three discoveries. And what we learned was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and when I say fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to that whole healed state of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Why is that good? Healing is entirely predictable. I'm happy to share the 5 stages if you want me to.
Let's do it.
Okay, so they're totally mapped out in Trust Again. It's what we teach within the PBT Institute. All of our coaches, that's what they're certified in. Here's a distilled version. So stage 1, this is like a setup stage. So if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental and kind of neglecting the emotional and the spiritual. So what does that look like? Looks like we're really good at thinking and doing, right? And we're not really concentrating or paying attention to the feeling and being. Anyway, if a table has 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over. Well, that's us. Stage 2, the scariest of all of the stages. And this is shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. And it's the breakdown of the body, mind, and worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete and total state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around the information you just learned. Makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. Don't go there, trust this person, this is how life works. It's the rules that govern us and prevent chaos, and in one earth-shattering moment, it's destroyed. The bottom is bottomed out on you. And the new bottom hasn't been formed yet, so it's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of whatever you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Right? Here's the trap though. Stage 3 is by far, hands down, the most common place to get stuck. And here's why. When I say it, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, right? Because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where we just came from. We're like, okay, I got this. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we start planting roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits. You get to be right. You get your story. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everybody you talk to, right? You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget it. I'm not trusting anybody. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. Now, because you're here longer than you're supposed to be, the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not all that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. And now, because you're here longer than you should be, these are the thoughts you're thinking. That's the energy you're putting out there. Like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and people towards you to confirm, yep, this is exactly where you belong. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. Right here is where we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves from what's so painful to feel or face. So think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. I can see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, the drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. They'll say, it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Exactly. And that's why From Hardened to Healed is just for stage 3, because I couldn't believe how many people were bothering to have their experience, that it already happened, and they found themselves in stage 3 and they just stayed there. It's like you owe it to yourself to move through the stages. So, right. Yeah. Do you want to hear 4 and 5?
Absolutely. I mean, I think most people just wouldn't know it happened to them. They're stuck there and they think that's just how life is. They wouldn't even know that they could move on or, think through about processing the betrayal to get to, a different side or a different perspective in life.
There is a roadmap. So that's stage 3. And that's why it's the hardest one to leave, because there are so many reasons and ways we get stuck. Anyway, if you're willingness is a huge word here, but if you're willing to keep going, you're willing to grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. Here's where grieving, which you mentioned earlier, comes into play also. You can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo my experience, but I control what I do with it. Just in that decision, you're starting to turn down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage you'd been creating in stages 2 and stage 3.
What I like about what you just said is that you're acknowledging what actually occurred. And it sounds like a more empowered perspective and mindset than you had in stage 3.
Exactly. It's still very action oriented. Like stage 3 is action oriented. How do I survive? Who can I trust? All these things. Stage 4 is action oriented too, but more along the lines of what do I need to heal? Do I try this? Do I do that? Right? So still action oriented, but now you're healing. You're starting that transformation process. I use the example of if you were to move to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever. You don't have all your stuff there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's a good decision for you. You know it's going to be okay. That's sort of the feeling of it. But what's so interesting that I found to stage 4 is this: if you were to move, you don't bring everything with you. Right? You don't bring the things that don't represent who you want to be in your new space. And what I found was if your friends weren't there for you, you've outgrown them right here. You don't take them from stage 3 to stage 4. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. If they don't rise, they don't come. Very common.
That's powerful.
So if you feel like, if you're wondering, what is, and we think, is it me? It is. That's what transformation is. And anyway, we can talk all about that too. When you've made stage 4, kind of this new space, mental space, cozy home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal, self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise, things like that. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. We were surviving. Now we do. We're making the mind is healing. We're making new rules. We're making new boundaries based on what we've experienced. And we have a new worldview based on what we see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Oh, that's I love this conversation. I want to go back just a few minutes ago when you mentioned that you can spot the signs of betrayal. Do you mind enlightening us on what those are? Because maybe you've gone through betrayal in your life, and like you said, it happened decades ago, and maybe you don't even realize that you've got some of these symptoms that have been lingering and that you've been carrying on through life, or maybe it's a recent betrayal. But how could people identify whether or not, they are dealing with some of these issues?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the post-betrayal syndrome quiz is for. But I'm going to tell you how we see an unhealed betrayal in health, work, and relationships. Ready?
Okay.
In relationships, I'll see it in one of two ways. The first way is in a repeat betrayal. The face has changed, but it's the same thing. And you're like, what the heck? I keep going from boss to boss to boss, friend to friend to friend, partner to partner to partner. Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in that there is a profound lesson needing to be learned. Until and unless you do, you will keep getting opportunities in the form of people to teach you. Like in my instance, right? It was my family. And then a few years later, it was my husband. And I'll close the loop on that story too. Right. And then I was like, oh, no. Boundaries have always been getting crossed. I never took my needs seriously. That's it. So look what I did. For me, it was a bold move to enroll in a PhD program. For me, it was like the first thing I'd ever done for myself. Huge, but game changer. You see, lesson learned, right? But when we don't take the opportunity to learn that lesson, it keeps repeating itself. So that's the first way. The second way we see it in relationships is with the big wall that goes up. We're like, nope, no, thank you. Been there, done that. And we think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. We don't want to risk being that vulnerable again, to take a chance on experiencing that level of pain again. And so we put the big wall up. We're like, you know what? I'm better off being alone. Now, it's one thing if you're better off being alone because you just have so much joy and love in your heart, and you're just so good with where you are. That's not what I'm talking about. But when the decision is based on fear, right? That's an unhealed betrayal. Anyway, we see it in health too, where people go to the most well-meaning doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. And at the root of it is an unhealed betrayal. Like 45% of anybody who's been betrayed has a gut issue. Very likely they go to a gut expert who's doing amazing work. But if they don't know at the root of it is an unhealed betrayal, they're hacking away at the leaves. They're not getting to the root. I mean, that's why our certification program, I want every, doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to know about the 5 stages, because think about how much deeper of a transformation they can have with their clients and patients if they know betrayal is at the root of it. We see it in work too. People, let's say they want a raise or promotion, they deserve it, but their confidence was shattered in the betrayal. So they don't have the confidence to ask, and they're bitter and resentful instead. Or they want to be a team player or collaborative partner, but the person they trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do they trust that boss, that coworker, that collaborative partner? It shows up everywhere.
Okay, so let's say there's a situation that you can't get away from. Like you can easily, and I don't want to, maybe easily is not the right word. You can navigate away from an employment situation or a friendship situation much more so than you can a family situation. So, in theory, if somebody is has experienced betrayal or continues to experience betrayal in connection with their family, and maybe this is in the case of a divorce where you're co-parenting or something, or it's a parent-child relationship or a sibling relationship. How do you recommend people, move through the stages of betrayal and to get out of that third stage, move on to 4 and 5, where they can, start to enjoy their life again and not feel these really negative and complex emotions, and, recover from these symptoms, these physical symptoms? What should they do if the betrayer is constantly in your environment and it just feels like Groundhog's Day over and over again?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say healing and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on And that's what I did with my family. It simply wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up, new, with the person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two totally transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. Never in a billion years would I have done anything like that if I wasn't totally different, and for sure, if he wasn't totally different. So rebuilding, whether you rebuild yourself or you rebuild as a totally new couple, is absolutely a possibility. I'd love to share something with you right now. So this way you see if it's safe and in your best interest to heal and rebuild with that person, or if you're better off healing yourself and moving on. Can I share that?
Please. This sounds, okay. I'm really intrigued. This sounds exciting.
So I call it the window of willingness. And it's something we teach within the Institute. And it's based on a communication model. And I kicked it up a couple of notches. So if you can imagine a window, the widest open, widest meaning with the greatest possibility of healing and rebuilding with that person. And as the window closes, it gets less and less and less, right? Best case scenario, the window is the widest open. This is a level 1. And it's remorse, empathy, apology, restitution, regret, right? And it sounds something like this. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry for the pain I caused you. I can't even imagine the hurt and damage I've caused. What in the world can I do to make it up to you? Now, when it comes to betrayal, it's going to take a lot more than that, but at least you're off to a good start if you're interested in rebuilding with this person. And then I want to talk also about how it's not even about the other person in the beginning. You just need to heal. But anyway, at least if that's a possibility, you're working with something here. This person has taken full and complete ownership and responsibility. You could feel the window closing a little bit with level 2, and you know it's coming when you hear the word because. I did it because, I said it because. Now, you still may be willing to listen, but it doesn't sound as good as that full and complete ownership that you got from that level 1. Did you feel that? You felt the difference?
Because they're justifying the behavior.
Exactly, right? Now, you know, with the next one, you know it's coming when you hear the word you. Well, I did it because you. I did it. I said it because you did. I call this the two-sided slap. Here, you get betrayed, and now you get blamed for it. Like, what? This is crazy making. Don't buy this for a minute.
So number 3 is the blaming
level
scenario.
3 is blame.
Okay.
Right. Now, level 3 and level 4 are very close cousins. This is level 4. The window is sealed shut. This is complete and total denial, zero responsibility. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. You really need some help. You see, when you're met with a level 1, level 2, you have something to work with if you choose to. With a level 3, level 4, you don't really, at this point in their level of consciousness, there's nothing to work with here. You heal yourself, you move along. Now, sometimes I say this and people, it gets them really angry because they realize, oh my gosh, I have been spending all my time, effort, energy, working with a level 3 and level 4, and I get it because this was my family. You want to write everything down. You said this, don't you remember? And you're proving and exhausting yourself and making yourself sick.
Right.
And here's where you think you're crazy. You're not. It's not you. When you're working with that level 3, level 4, there's nothing to work with at this point in time.
Okay. So what do you do with that? Let's say you've come to this realization, you've shared, these different stages of the window being open. And let's say you've got a relationship where you've got to be in communication or close contact or proximity on a regular basis with somebody who's got a stage 3 or stage 4 level of consciousness. How do you manage that situation?
Yeah. You must learn. First of all, you need to learn it's not you. Because when you're being told it's you for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years, you believe it, right? Or even whatever amount of time. And that's the way that relationship kind of works, if you call it working. It only works when you're off kilter. It only works when you don't believe in yourself. It only works when you have a low self-esteem or lack of confidence. We have this big, gigantic, open heart and belief in this other person and faith, and we'll try to heal them and teach them. And that's where it's just not working. So the most important thing is you need to do the work, because the more work you do to heal, the more you realize it's not you. It's not you. And that is the most important piece. And I'm going to show you something with my hands. Can you see my hands right here?
Yep.
Okay, you're never going to forget this. Ready? Here's what happens. We are so sad, so brokenhearted after a betrayal, and the pain is so great. We just want that pain to go away. So we just want it to go away either with that person or with someone new. This is the absolute worst time to be in a relationship. Absolute worst, whether it's that person who hurt you, someone new. Because here's what happens. This is the best time to do the work physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, right? Now, if you're doing this, but you're so committed to this person, you're going to keep sabotaging yourself because you don't want to outgrow them, right? Yeah. So you keep doing this, but you like it up here. So then you're like, but why can't they do this? Because they're not ready, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're committed to this, but you're committed to this person, you get this. You see, where you're like, ooh, what happened to you? And this person's like, I'm not even the least bit interested in you. So your whole job is to do this without any expectation of what this person's going to do. Now you have a few things that could happen. You could do this, and this person could on their own say, you know what, I better step up my game. Right. And then you meet again up here. That was my husband, and me. Right. I did this on my own. That was it. That was the deal breaker, right? On his own, he did this too. And we met again up here. Now, also what happens is you do this person has no intention of doing anything. You go your own way. But if you do this can't help but show up. And when I say this, when I'm doing this with my hands here, it's not even just a partner, friends, work, everybody. This is where you live now. Yep. You don't match. This isn't a match for you anymore.
So does it make sense that once you do that work and you get to this higher level, then you're going to attract new friends, you're going to attract new relationships, you're going to attract new work situations and scenarios, and you're going to attract a new community? And people like to say, like, I found my tribe, but maybe that's how you find your tribe, is that you get away from the people that were at that lower level, holding you down, giving you these reoccurring experiences of betrayal or reminding you of it. Is that how that works?
Yeah, well, that's why. Remember, I told you from stage 3 to stage 4, when you move to that new space, you don't take everything with you, right? It's the same thing. When you're doing this, if your friends, let's say friends, for example, if they're here, they didn't change, you did. You all of a sudden did this, right? And you're like, well, why? What's happening? Why do I not feel right? Because you're here now and they're here. It's not their fault. That's where you were too. And now it's just not an energetic match. So here's why, when you move from that stage 3 to stage 4, you're doing this. And that's why these people, if they don't rise, they don't come, because you're just
So within this healing process, it sounds like there's also a theme of letting go. So do you have any advice on that? Can be really hard for people, especially like if you're letting go of relationships that have been important for decades. So do you have any advice or guidance on how people can navigate through the process of letting go in a way that's gentle, and it's not a harsh, cutoff, but it's just kind of like a natural, gradual evolution of how, life just transforms?
Right. And here's where I would say you need support. You can't do this alone. And it's the right support. The wrong support does more harm than good. And we have people coming into the Institute all the time with therapy trauma. If that therapist isn't highly skilled in helping someone move through betrayal, it does more harm than good. Also, we have a lot of people coming in who are in some sort of like support group. And think about what happens in a support group. If you're just in a support group and it's like the misery loves company crowd,
right?
And these are your new friends, you don't want to grow because now you outgrow your group, you see? So you need support from people who will help lift and inspire. I mean, that's why it's a very unique type of community we have, in PBT, because if it's the ain't it awful crowd, it's going to hold you back. So what happens, what I often recommend is instead of just looking at it like, okay, I'm just going to cut these people off and have no one, what you want to do is create those new friendships and those new relationships with people who are going to pull you forward, because then it's not like, oh, I just cut off all my friends. I have no ties to anybody. What the heck? This is terrifying, right? Now you're like, I really like what's going on over here. I like how these people think. I like how they're moving through their experience. They're looking for the upside. They're looking to transform. And you gravitate towards that. And then slowly you become. So that is a more gentle way. Instead of like, I just don't resonate with those people, I'm done.
This has been so good. Will you tell us a little bit about kind of your own personal journey and, how how you chose to step up to level 4 and 5, and how it sounds like that inspired your husband to level up his game, and like what I'm curious about, number one, the process, how long did that take? Was there anything in particular that you did to really like emphasize, hey, I'm not going back. I'm going to just move forward at this new level?
Yeah. And I can tell you, I went through the stages. You don't skip the stages. The order doesn't change. You will go through every one if you are to fully heal. The stage 2 and 3 were absolutely brutal. I mean, there were days in stage 2, I could barely get out of bed. I mean, functioning was all I can hope for. But I think with me personally, the reason why I didn't stay stuck for long was I was doing the study, and all I was doing was implementing what the study was proving was working. Anything that, the study was showing, well, that doesn't work, I didn't do, because why would I, So I was the case study in, just trying out everything that I was learning and seeing. That was one of the reasons why it didn't take me a really super long time. Especially without having a roadmap. Now it's like people, it's like, okay, I'm in 2. How do I get to 3? How do I get to 4? How do I get to 5? So that was one of the reasons why I moved so quickly. But I do remember going through the program, and I remember this very profound moment where I just said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but if I heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me. It was like a knowing. It just was.
Yeah.
And then, spirituality has a really big role in healing as well. And even the study proved this. There were a lot of people left their religion. They felt their religion didn't support them. People moved to the spiritual side of their religion. And some people who weren't really like anything became very spiritual. And I was already pretty spiritual, and I gravitated even more towards it. And I wondered why. And then, when you think about it, it makes so much sense. When, first of all, you want this sense of connectedness, because you just lost any sense of connectedness to the closest person to you. And everything now feels crazy. It's like, if the person I trusted the most proved untrustworthy, how do I trust them? Where was I? I can't even trust myself. Well, if I can't trust that person and I don't trust myself, how in the world can I trust in anybody or anything? Right. So it's so far reaching. So spirituality had this huge role also in helping to rebuild trust. I can't trust that person. I can't trust myself. At least I can trust in something bigger other than me. So that was a huge piece of it. And in my particular scenario, and now all your wonderful people are going to think I'm crazy, but I remember going to a spiritual counselor, because I was like, you know what? I need some support right here. She has a direct line. I'm all in. And I remember going to this person, and we've since become dear friends. And I walk into her office, and before I sit, I just even sat down, just like, oh, how you two planned this. I was like, what did you just? She goes, yeah. He needed something so profound, so hard, just so he could crash and burn and become the husband, father, friend he's supposed to be. You needed to crash and burn so you can heal and really teach from this deep place of knowing. You're going to have an institute and books and this big following around betrayal. And I'm like, you're crazy. So
I just got goosebumps when you're telling this story. That's really amazing. Yeah.
And I remember in my healing process, I was like, what if she's right? What if she's right? I'm going to do all I can to heal. The kids just knew, listen, I'm doing my best, but this is hard. And they just sort of gave me the space to be like, Mom, we're behind you, whatever you want to do. He was actually the one who told my kids, if anything is going to have you wake up and realize what matters, it's losing the only people that matter. And he lost all of us. And they were like, whatever you want to do, Mom, we got you. And so that kind of cleared the space for, okay, let me just heal. and just see what shows up. And that was I was like, just go through the program, just see what happens, just do the study. But what if she's right that this is for a bigger reason? What if? And I think that was something, that message sort of pulled me forward. Like, what if I am supposed to do something with this? I don't know. And I think it was really a combination that helped my process. And now, thankfully, a lot of other people too.
So it sounds like getting the right kind of support, qualified, trained support, and not being in a group with moaners, people that are, suffering and enjoying that suffering, and they're drinking and they don't want to do anything else but like moan and complain about the scenario. But people who are really actively working on changing, transforming, taking this terrible situation, when life gives you lemons, turning it into lemonade, and looking for kind of the gold that's available through this pain. And then also, so you get the right kind of support, but also lean into your spirituality, your faith, your connectedness with God, or a higher power, or, whatever will help inspire you and get you through your day.
And it also, it has to be healed on every level, because every level is impacted. So, some people just go to therapy, and even if it's the greatest therapist, right? That's mental, emotional, but what about the issues are in the tissues? I mean, this hits us on every level. So, we have certain coaches in PBT that specialize in somatic, body-based activities. Then it's like, you need support around all these things, whether it's reconciliation or divorce or the kids, how do you manage all of it? Yeah. So it all needs to be addressed.
So let's talk a little bit about the kind of support people can get now. And I'm curious about the PBT, the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. Is this a place that anybody can go to, or do you need to be a doctor, a coach? Is it just, tell us a little bit about who can access this platform and get support and training?
Yeah, sure. So, what happened was when the 5 stages were discovered, I was like, you can't make that kind of discovery and keep it to yourself. So I put the 5 stages in our signature Betrayal to Breakthrough program, and it blew up. And then everyone wanted to work with me. So I created our certification program, and that blew up. And I was like, okay, well, clearly I did the study. I know what works. What would happen if we put everything that works, exclude anything that doesn't, and put it under one roof? That's the PBT Institute. So in there, we have people from all over the world. In there, we have our certified coaches. They're all certified in the 5 stages, but they're coming in with 10, 20, 30 years of their area of expertise. So they're teaching, those somatic practices, or reconciliation, or narcissism, or divorce, or addiction, they specialize in everything. And then they teach daily classes. Like if you were to go to a fitness studio and see a list of classes, they teach live classes every single day. We have our signature programs where people, it's self-paced, people can just do them on their own, which literally move you through the 5 stages. Everything is recorded. So every class, like let's say somebody comes in and they're dealing with a narcissistic partner, they can binge watch one of our coaches' classes, 100 something classes if they want to. We have experts coming in to teach master classes, anything that can help my community. I'm in there doing Q&A. And we have the most amazing community that's there to lift and inspire. So it's designed that way. So everybody has a slightly different story, but we all are in a club we never wanted to be in. We all understand that pain. Yeah. And we even have different clubs, like a men's club, so the men don't feel bombarded by the women. we have the PBT Cafe where everybody goes every morning, and our community engagement manager has this like inspirational kind of topic of the day. So it's all designed. It's very forward moving. I'm a psychologist, but I'm a coach first, and every coach or practitioner in there is there to help you move. You come in at stage 2 or stage 3, and it is very intentional to move you to stage 4, stage 5, and beyond.
That's awesome. So we're going to put all of your links in our show notes, and we'll also pop them up here. But I know you mentioned you have a free quiz for people to understand, like at what stage in betrayal that they're in. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 quizzes, the post-betrayal syndrome quiz and the healed or hardened quiz. And that's where you find out exactly what stage you're in. So they could just find that at healedorhardenedquiz.com.
Okay. All right. We will link that there. And then in order for somebody to join or participate in the PBT Institute, what do they need to do?
They just need to go to the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, the PBT Institute, and then just click membership and you'll learn more. And you can join for a month. You can join for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 different levels. But if you're hesitant, wary, I get it. You know, people are coming in with trust issues.
Right.
So try for a month. You'll see. You'll see for yourself. And we have a lot of people, they're like, I don't get it. You know, I was so blindsided. How can I trust you? I'm only dedicating my life to helping them, but I get it. Try for a month. And then they're like, oh, I get it. I don't, you know, within such a short amount of time, they've done more than what they've done in years of therapy or certainly on their own.
If somebody wants to read some of the books that you've written, because you've written several, like what order should they read them in?
Yeah, I would say if you want to, you know, here's the thing: at a time where you need support the most, you're usually the least likely to seek it because there's so much shame and embarrassment and humiliation. That's why I wrote Trust Again, and because it's tragic not to rebuild trust. So I would start with Trust Again, which literally moves you through the stages, and then if you are really finding stage 3 hard to leave, From Hardened to Healed. Can help you with that. And they're both available on, you know, as an audiobook as well. And I narrated them. So.
Okay. Amazing. Debi, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate all that you shared with us. I know this is going to be really valuable to a lot of people out there that find this content. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or advice for our community who are navigating through the stages of betrayal and grief?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, because it's my intention just to get the 5 stages out to everybody. So I appreciate you. I would just say, I know the pain. I know how bad it is. And one thing I would say is, if you have to say this 1,000,000 times to yourself, it's worth it. Even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It's not about you. That's the first thing. And the second thing I would say is, you've been through the worst of it already. Don't stay stuck. Don't stay in stage 3. You owe it to yourself to transform. There's a roadmap and a community that can help you do just that.
Oh, what a beautiful message. Thank you so much. Debi, hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.